It is with my deepest apologies that I cannot be with all of you tonight at my induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. For the past year or so, I've been battling a health problem which has yet to be diagnosed and has left me being both severely anemic, chronically fatigued, and painfully arthritic, joint swelling throughout my body. Let me express my sincerest thank you to all of you for your efforts in honoring me as part of this prestigious Hall of Fame. I started wrestling at the age of 6. The primary reason for such a young start was because my brothers, Kurt and Brad, had started a few years earlier. I was always inquisitive as to where they were going and what they were doing. When I tagged along one night, I found out very quickly why they enjoyed wrestling so much. The wrestling took place at a community center in downtown Easton, Pennsylvania, a place by the name of St. Anthony's Youth Center. Practice was held 6 days a week, with Sundays being competition day. The team was coached by Dick Rutt, Easton's first Pennsylvania state champ. He was very demanding, but made practices interesting, unique, and fun. Wrestlers were there for a variety of reasons, some very serious, and some just wanting to be a part of something. The latter would be my justification. I may have weighed 35 to 40 pounds when I started wrestling, and in years to come would find other sports very difficult to compete because of size differences. I tried baseball and football, but both would have short careers. However, wrestling provided me an opportunity to compete with kids my own weight, and I would wrestle at the grade school level for about 8 years. I did not have a lot of success until my last year in grade school, 8th grade, winning a grade school championship. But all those years were very important to me because I spent a lot of time at St. Anthony's. This wrestling program would help to fill the void when I lost my father at the age of 9 and my brother at the age of 11. A small community of people, coaches, wrestlers, and parents at St. Anthony's filled many voids left by the passing of my father and brother. I would not recognize then what I absolutely know now, that this wrestling community provided me something beyond wrestling, a love and caring for a human being in need. This is a special message that I try to pass on to the younger wrestlers and parents, especially when the focus is just on winning and losing, that there will be other more important outcomes of this sport, the relationships that you will encounter over the years, and the type of person you evolve into because of those relationships, hopefully an honorable, caring individual. Because of those special relationships, with very little success early on, I would eventually mature while winning some major events within the next 4 to 5 years. In 9th grade, and for the first few matches in 10th grade, I still could not break through to make varsity at Easton High School, mostly due to the fact of maturity and a guy named Henry Calley. Henry was a teammate of mine from grade school up through high school. Henry was very physical, was very mature, and very difficult to beat. However, after about 5 years, I finally beat Henry for a varsity spot, and through the competitiveness between the two of us, led me to winning 3 PIAA state titles. Sometimes you have to lose a few to win a few. In other words, losing is a part of winning, and in some ironic outlook, winning is a part of losing, if the correct lesson is taught. All wrestlers hope to show their best each time they hit the mat. There is no disgrace in losing if you have done all the right things to compete. However, many times losing happens because of failure to prepare or to make necessary changes in conditioning or technique. In high school, I was very fortunate to be surrounded with great coaches that made me better, both condition-wise and technique. Coach Bob Zarbatani, along with his assistants, Dan Kuhn, Dave Kroll, Steve Powell, and John Cox, all encouraged me to seek other avenues in wrestling, that being freestyle wrestling. As a junior in high school, I pinned 8 out of 9 opponents in the 1976 Olympic trials in Cleveland, Ohio. The bad news, I took second. The good news, I was able to attend training camps at the national level, elevating me in both concepts, training and technique. When I came home from 1976 Olympics in Montreal, I had realized all that I had learned that summer when I took to the mats for my senior year in high school. I recognized how quickly technique could make up for shortcomings in conditioning and strength. I often tell my wrestlers of my size shortcomings and how technique knowledge can be the great equalizer. Anyone that has witnessed my college career would agree. Although my overall technique improved when I was in high school, I still had some deficiencies, especially on bottom. After attending Easton High School, I went to Blair Academy as a postgraduate student athlete. The coach there was Tom Hutchison. Coach Hutch developed my bottom wrestling and kept me focused toward freestyle wrestling. I would eventually win national preps and make improvement at the national level in freestyle, getting close to becoming the #1 wrestler in the country at 105.5 pounds. For the next 3 years, including 1976, Billy Rosado would be the #1 wrestler at 105.5 pounds. However, through training camps, Billy's unselfish willingness to teach wrestling to me, especially in the area of foot sweeps and throws, would enable me to become a much better offensive wrestler as well as a defensive wrestler. Eventually, through his teachings in the competition between the both of us, I would make my first world team in 1979 and establish me as the world-class wrestler, finishing second in the world, and more important, establishing me as the #1 man nationally at 105.5 pounds, up to and including 1984. Billy Rosado was key in helping me make it to being a wrestler able to compete at the world-class level. Again, proving the fact that you have to lose to win, and rivalries can work out to be the best relationships. Wrestling at Lehigh University was something I did not give much thought to as a grade school wrestler, but became more of a reality because it was a wish of my brother Brad. Brad was a very good high school wrestler, but never realized his senior year because of a tragic car accident. Dad Turner was recruiting my brother back then, and it was pretty much a conclusion that Brad would attend Lehigh. He did not make the trip to Lehigh, and I pledged that if I had the opportunity, I would attend Lehigh. For many reasons, Lehigh was the choice. They would have a strong wrestling tradition. It was in my backyard. It would allow local wrestling fans an opportunity to see a local wrestler, but more important, it was a lifelong dream of my brother, Brad. Wanting to go to Lehigh and actually being accepted were definitely two different pathways because I was not as academically sound as my older brother. But if you really want something, one can achieve anything. I would spend a year at Blair Academy to try and gain entrance to Lehigh. Blair was very demanding, but would provide me with what I needed. I remember the summer before I started Blair, I had to read 10 books and prepare 10 papers on what I had to read. I did this at training camp, and with Blair's atmosphere of smaller class sizes and more individual teacher interaction, I became a better student. I improved my SAT scores high enough to gain entrance to Lehigh University. Attending Blair was a very important part of my life. Not only would it help me to improve in wrestling, but would provide me an avenue to become more academically sound. Enough so to attend Lehigh and not only graduate with 1 degree, but with 2 degrees. Lehigh was going to be a big challenge for me, not only in academics, but in wrestling. I only weighed 113 pounds upon entering college. Although I would never win an NCAA championship, my international freestyle experiences would allow me to compete with much larger opponents in college, sometimes even overcompensate with technique and pull some upsets over nationally ranked individuals or eventual national champions. I finished college with a 57-14-1 record, which may seem disappointing, but knowing what I was up against each match and the individuals I lost to multiple times, an example of which would be Barry Davis, I personally consider my college career a success, especially when I finished third in 1982, and considering the weight differentials, I finished college weighing 119 pounds. All things considered, my collegiate career, grade school to college, was somewhat successful. However, I would become more recognized for my freestyle experiences, having been involved in 3 Olympics, team member 2 times, 1980 and 84, and alternate 1 time in 1976. 3 world teams, 1979, 1982, 1983. Numerous World Cup teams, especially 1980, the first time we beat the Russians on the senior level in over 20-plus years. I pinned Roman Dmitriev, Russian Olympic champion, to start things off for the United States. What a monumental team victory. However, my greatest achievement was winning the Olympic gold medal in freestyle wrestling at the 1984 Olympic Games in Los Angeles, California. Why? My Olympic coaches, specifically Dan Gable and Bill Wick, had me so prepared that not only did I win matches, I dominated my opponents. My conditioning and technique were of the highest levels, and being at 105.5 pounds, my normal weight category, allowed me to compete with individuals of my own size. Wrestling has always been that positive in my life, and continues to do so even with my current illness. This sport has been so good to me. It has taken me to parts of the world that other people can only imagine. Wrestling provided me an avenue to obtain a quality college education. Wrestling is such a unique sport that provides a smaller individual an opportunity to compete and be recognized for their achievements. But most important, the wrestling community which I attended as a youth surrounded me with the care and the support needed to overcome the adversity that my family and I faced in a time of need. Since my years of competition, 20 years worth, ending in 1984, I've been active teaching wrestlers at camps, clinics, and clubs. Although I live a relatively quiet life in the wrestling world, I've tried to pass on all the knowledge that has been bestowed upon me by many great coaches and many great wrestling associates. I know that the value that wrestling has played in my own life personally, and I recognize why I love the sport so passionately. And it has been my life's ambition to have others see what I see. My life has pretty much revolved around the sport of wrestling, and yes, at times it's created conflict in family and marriage. I wish to thank my wife, Lori, for her patience and understanding over the years to date, 29 years of marriage. I would be remiss not to mention my #1 influence throughout my lifetime, that great woman being my mother, Jackie. She endured the same tragedies that I did, and yet raised 3 children to adulthood successfully. I know my mother was very proud of me and my accomplishments, but soothed some of the wounds inflicted upon us early on. This induction to the National Wrestling Hall of Fame will bring yet another huge smile from heaven above. Thank you, Mom, and thanks to all of you who have made this happen.
you.